Welcome to this episode of Build with Stakki, everybody. This week we have Nia Woodhouse, who is the SDR leader, SDR manager over at My Sales Coach. Nia, thank you very much for joining us this week. And pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here, excited for this conversation.
Excellent. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we do at Stakki is around sort of optimizing the sales tech stack to give leaders back time so they can better enable their teams, support their teams, and coach their teams. And that's why we love working with you guys. So I'm sure we'll get into lots of good topics. But this first section, we'll go through the Build with Stakki segment. So I know you've seen maybe a few episodes or we've spoken about this a little bit, but I'll share my screen and we're going to go through just what are the tools that you are using with your team, maybe why you've picked some of them, so that we can start to just help users get an idea of what's out there in the market and what good SDR teams are using. Wow. So at the moment, just give me a bit of an insight actually into the size of the team. How many SDRs or outbound sales reps have you got?
So we have 3 on the SDR team, including me. I'm leading that team, and then we've got 2 senior leaders on the sales team, 2 AEs, and an account manager. So everybody on the sales team is responsible for generating pipeline, but obviously the SDRs, that is their sole focus, and that is what we do day in, day out.
Excellent. And so with that team then, what's the CRM? Which one are you using?
We use HubSpot, and actually that's probably the only CRM that I've ever used. So I feel like I'm pretty well versed at this point in HubSpot.
Perfect. Great system. Getting stronger and stronger with all of its new integrations, purchasing Clearbit over the last couple of years ago. Are there any features within HubSpot that you've your team couldn't live without? Any fancy features and things that really stand out?
So I'm not really into fancy features, but I feel like as an SDR manager, we could do our job without tech, but it'd be very, very hard.
Absolutely.
If you said, Nee, what are the things that you can't live without? My CRM would be one of them, and then a great data enrichment tool would be another. Everything else is really great to have, but having built this process from scratch, I know what I need to have, and that is HubSpot and a great enrichment tool. So in terms of what it allows me or enables me to do is I have the data of the whole SDR team and sales team at my fingertips, and that is essential as an SDR manager, because a huge part of my role is analyzing data and using it to make data-driven decisions. Of course, you can do that without a CRM, but it would be insane to do that, and it just makes it so much easier. I don't need to do anything other than look at my dashboards, and then I can use that to have context to the decisions that I'm making.
Exactly. And you've alluded to the exact mindset there. I think we share is everything that you give your teams and the tools that we're going to select and show here, the goal is to have them pull back to one central place of work. So your SDRs can work efficiently from the CRM. I know which channels you guys probably use the most, so we'll come on to that. But it gives you, as the leader, the clear insight into their activity, where they're succeeding, where they maybe need help, and the coaching that goes on from that. So the next area then, you already alluded to it, data enrichment. What's the best data tools that you're finding actually help your team right now?
So we currently use Cognism, and I personally use Full Enrich as well. And I think that we're seeing that more and more, where teams are using multiple data enrichment technologies to have the best data at the fingertips.
100%. I think Full Enrich, I might have guessed that Cognism was up there. Obviously, a lot of your work is sort of UK EMEA focused, so really good data for that. And then Full Enrich is that waterfall enrichment tool that can probably plug some of the gaps, help you get a few extra credits, a few extra conversations without breaking the bank and trying to buy build your own waterfall enrichment, like some companies do try and do, and they just end up with 10 different plugins, 10 different extensions on their screen, slowing themselves down. Full enrich, great option. So we're building a good basis there. I imagine for you guys, your first port of call in your outreach is probably phone, or excellent. And what dialer are you using?
We use Aircall that's integrated with HubSpot, so we dial through HubSpot, but it's through Aircall.
Yeah, perfect. So important having it like fully integrated again into the CRM, one place of work, make it nice and easy, nice and simple. With Aircall, are you using any of their sort of conversation and intelligence pieces yet? Or maybe some of the conversational AI stuff yet?
We're not, because we use Jimminy for that.
Of course. Great option as well. And so that Jimminy is going to be used probably by all of your sales team, pull in the transcriptions, all of those conversations, right?
Exactly.
Nice. So here we've got a nice, clean, holistic phone first stack. Mm-hmm. What else might the team be using? Are you using other channels for engagement as well, or are you sort of all phone?
Yeah, so we are a phone first company. However, the second most successful channel for us is LinkedIn. So we use Sales Navigator as well. We use that probably at the start of our outbound process to help identify leads and to enrich the contacts and companies that we already have. And I would say those two are our most successful channels, phone and LinkedIn. And then we obviously do emails as well, but it is our least favorite, but you got to do it. So we do that all through HubSpot as well with our sequencing.
Perfect. See, so no need to go and buy another sequencer, another cadencing tool, anything like that. HubSpot, you can do that through HubSpot, and then you can call through that same list. Are you, as a team then, your phone first, feels like there's maybe reluctance to use some email, but it's got to be done. How are you setting up those sequences? Are you having the sequence for email sort of run in the background whilst you call, or is it part of the sequence, like it has steps to dial within it?
Yeah, it's part of the sequence, and that is by design. I joined sales in like the golden age of 2018, where you could have automated emails running in the background and you would book a ton of meetings from it. People are wise to it. The conditions of Google and Yahoo, who are ultimately blocking mass email, have stopped all that, and it's for the right reasons. People know when they've been enrolled in a sequence. So yes, we have emails as part of our sequences, but they're intentional, and those are manual steps as well. There's no point sending emails if they're going to land in spam or if they're just generic messaging. So I believe that sequences have changed and evolved for their purpose. It used to be that we could just rely on them ticking along in the background. That doesn't work anymore. What we should use them as now is ways to stop prospects from slipping through the cracks, so that we're still continuously reaching out to them, but we're intentional about our messaging. And it's not all about us. We're not just asking them for time, and we're not asking them for a meeting. It's sharing content, sharing value that can actually help them out. And I see it more as a marketing tool rather than a sales tool, and we just sort of package it together with our outbound outreach.
Yeah, perfect. Key point for me there is that it's not, or it doesn't always have to be asking for a meeting or asking for something from the prospect. Those emails can just be, hey, saw this, thought this might be useful for a team like yours. And just, it's a reminder that you're there, you're present for when the time's right for them to come back to you. So that then when you do make those calls, it's a bit more relevant, right?
Exactly. And it's something to reference. And another great feature is probably very old, but you can see with HubSpot when somebody's clicked or when somebody's opened your email, and it's like the perfect time to reach out to them because they've probably got like a 5-minute gap in their day where they've opened something that you've sent them, and you are literally going to be top of mind because you are in front of their screen.
Yeah, exactly. Similarly, you can use the buyer intent that HubSpot has. So anyone that's visiting your website, it will tell you when they're on there, when the companies are on there. You can have that pull into the right buckets and have that automate updates to your SDRs, to their lists, so that they don't miss those potential little signals on the list. Excellent. So with that, are there any other tools in this stack or in the My Sales Coach stack that we've missed or not covered yet?
There are core pieces of tech that we use. We also use software called Bohurst that helps us to identify our ICP. That ultimately gives us a good place to start, because you have your total addressable market, you have your ICP, but then within your ICP, you've got people who are ready to buy. And it's how do we identify those? And we identify those by specific triggers. So Bohurst helps us to find the people who have raised funding, who have new C-suites or new senior leaders there, or who are hiring and have increased their headcount. All of those for us are great triggers and intent for us to reach out. So that's probably right at the start of our tech stack. And again, everything talks with HubSpot, because I think it's really important to have all of your reps working from as few sort of screens as possible, so it doesn't get messy. So everything talks with HubSpot so that we can report from there, we can do our outreach from there, and it just makes it less messy and the workflow makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're seeing here with this stack that you've got here. Everything, I imagine your team, they can build lists, they can pull that all into HubSpot, they can call through HubSpot, they can enrich from those two great providers straight into HubSpot. They probably spend some time on LinkedIn. They probably spend some time in Jimminy, but that's when it's in a coaching session, when it's in a training session, or they're doing some self-enablement. But you're not distracting them. A lot of what we see these days, and why we've built Stakki, how we've built it, is to help people optimize, try and help people just work out what tools can I use that are going to all pull back to the CRM, remove distraction, and give people back time and energy to do more coaching, more enablement. And unsurprisingly, you and the team that you have nailed that with this stack. So appreciate the insight there into everything you're using. And for me, it brings up a few questions. It's some of the stuff we were talking about before. That, like sales tech, I think there's a lot of noise in the market, right? And we were talking just before about how that tech should come in to give people back capacity. And it's actually the enablement of your team that is going to have the biggest impact on pipeline and sales. What's your view on sort of where tech versus people coaching? How should that be aligned?
I think I have a really good understanding of this coming from the background that I have selling sales enablement tech. I came into the world of sales selling conversational intelligence tech and truly believed that that was the answer to the challenge that is salespeople aren't good enough. And that's typically because sales challenges, you can work out where the areas of improvement are in their sales conversations, and managers only have a finite amount of time. So how do they find the right conversations to listen to at the right time? And conversational intelligence does a really great job of highlighting that. But what it actually doesn't do is give managers the skills to be able to coach those calls and identify where they can move the needle the most. That's where coaching comes in. And this is true of pretty much all sales tech. Like you said, we buy it because we know that it's going to free up time, it's going to make us more efficient. But actually, like we were saying before, typically it takes around a year to implement this tech, to drive adoption, and then to actually see the ROI. But actually, what's happening in the meantime is salespeople aren't being upskilled on the specific areas that actually drives more revenue. And that is what you can do as a sales manager, which moves the needle the most.
Yeah. So if it can take maybe like a year of before you start to see ROI based on tools and adoption. Do you think coaching has a quicker demonstration on or impact on ROI, or are they kind of two sides of the same coin?
So you need to be coaching consistently and at a high level to drive ROI, but also it's difficult to have that, put that same revenue number on it. And that's because you can teach someone how to be the best cold caller or to lead the best discovery you've ever seen, but actually it's up to that person to put it into place. But actually you're working on that sole rep's strengths and areas of improvement. So actually, does it take a year to see that improvement? No, of course it doesn't. It's just, how good are you at coaching? How receptive is the salesperson to being coached? And how frequently are you driving those sessions as well? And of course, that tech will free up the space for you to be able to do that. But like I said, have you got a year for that tech to be able to do that, for you to start coaching as much as you should be to see those results?
Yeah, exactly. That impact and that, I guess, variance in the individual being coached, I think people were aware of that, and people might accept that some people learn at different rates. As a leader and the manager trying to implement that coaching, you mentioned frequency, and I'm sure you probably have great insights into how frequent, how often should SDRs or AEs be getting coaching, and should that be individual, group? How do you set that up, or how would you recommend any of our listeners should set up their coaching for the best impact?
So I can share how we do it internally, and that will give you a good idea of ultimately how frequent are we coaching, what does that look like, and how that impacts results. So I personally have one-to-ones with my team every single week, and that is on actual coaching rather than the number. Where possible, those conversations should be separated. So a common pitfall we see is where coaching is merged with pipeline reviews, and a lot of that time is spent looking at the CRM and talking about what deals are going to close, and that is not coaching. So having separate meetings for both helps to change mindsets and make sure that you're focusing on the coaching rather than the number. We also have bi-weekly coaching just for the SDRs, and that's in a team setting, because I think it's really important to share conversations and learnings between reps so that they can learn from each other. And also bi-weekly full sales team group coaching, and that's because we want our A's to hear what's going on in our initial outreach, but we also want to hear what's going on after that. Too often you have SDRs who book the meeting, hand it over, never to be heard again until it's either close lost or close won. We want to know what happens. We want to hear why that person decided to take the meeting and what's resonating with them, because that means that we can continuously evolve our messaging. And then we drink our own champagne. So we have our own personal coaches. And when I have a new rep on board, I would recommend seeing their own personal coach at least twice a month. And that's because you're learning so much more information. There's a ton going on in your head. You need to have that constant reinforcement. And as you sort of prolong that relationship, as you get better at your role, you might need to see them less. I personally see my coach once a month, but sometimes something crops up and I need answers straight away. So it's sort of there at my fingertips. So as you can see, there's a minimum of sort of 4 or 5 coaching engagements per rep per month. And like we were talking about, it depends on how well you're doing, how ambitious you are, what's new in the business, where you're up to in the business, and what goals you have as to how frequent you want that coaching to be.
Absolutely right. And that's a great insight into all the, I guess, variations that come into play for any individual, any team, how often they need coaching. Like you said, sometimes things just happen and suddenly you need some coaching. Mm-hmm. It's a new thing that comes up. You need that in the moment, coaching, last minute coaching, ad hoc coaching. And I guess that's why my sales coach are so useful to any teams out there, because leadership get pulled into different things. They might be in meetings, but the prospect that the SDRs have spoken to, they don't care. They ask for an answer by the end of the day or tomorrow, and it could really impact a deal. So that ad hoc coaching is so important. And to your previous point, that's why you've got a really nice, simple sales stack that helps people have more conversations, record everything that's happening, get coaching on that. There's not a load of other distractions. It's clean so that you can get more coaching to the team. With that ad hoc coaching, or the importance of that, one thing I see a lot of leadership think is that they need to own all of the coaching and all of the training for their individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got any advice around that? Does the same leader need to own all of it, or should they be bringing in other people, be comfortable with handing it off to others, support it? Like, how does that play into?
I love it when sales leaders want to own coaching, because it means that they value it and that they want to support their team. And in 2025, every single sales leader should be coaching their team, absolutely. But we know that it's not your full sole responsibility. As a leader myself, I have a ton of other things that I need to do that is not coaching. And therefore, I would be doing my team a disservice if I wouldn't let anybody coach just for that reason. Also, I know that I haven't got all the answers. I've been doing this a long time, but also I only know what I know, and I do my best to learn. But also, I want my team to have the autonomy to ask other people as well and get different ideas, because how do we learn if we're just sort of narrow-minded and trust our own experiences? So I would want a mixture, because you want to have that relationship with your team where you're supporting them, where you're helping them to grow, but also there's answers that you don't have, and in that case signpost them to other people where you don't have the bandwidth, and you might not have all of the answers, or you might have some of the answers, but you want to learn as well. So it's a great idea to get your team to find them in different areas, whether that's their own research, peer-to-peer coaching, or to go elsewhere to find a different coach as well.
Yeah, such a good point of like being the leader and wanting to be responsible and own like the coaching and the enablement stuff is one side of it, but also it's a real strength to say, look, I might not have all the answers, but Richard might, or Mark might, or Tom might, or whoever else in the team could also help you with these things. And I think a lot of startups, maybe a lot of coaches, a lot of SDR managers at the moment in 2025, they're looking for other places to get the advice, but there's sometimes like it's a hard thing to maybe give up or admit, I need some actually help coaching the people I'm meant to be coaching. And I think that's one thing that you pointed to there, and that you guys do really well, is help people actually, it's okay to get other places or go to other places for coaching and upskill everyone, or trust other people to upskill your team as well.
It's a bit like sales leaders would want their team to read sales books in their own time. They would want them to watch webinars and find new ideas on LinkedIn. I just don't see the difference with coaching. It's just more of a cheat sheet, because you're speaking with somebody who has already done what you want your team to do.
Yeah.
And it's just a quicker way for them to get answers. It gives people the autonomy as well to work with different sorts of people that they might not have experienced internally or day to day. And that's how people grow, when they're given the opportunity to meet new people with different backgrounds and different experiences, but ultimately people who've walked in their shoes, who can support them to be more successful.
Yeah. And that means they're happier, they feel more enabled, they feel more empowered, they're getting more help. They're only going to perform better in their sales role, and enjoy it more every day. It means they're going to build more pipeline, and the company will make more revenue, and then they earn more, and then they get more career prospects, and it all comes full circle.
Exactly. And sales teams are being encouraged to do more with less, and that extends to sales leaders as well. they are stretched beyond compare. And that means their time is as well. So despite their best efforts and despite what they would see in their perfect world, they physically can't give their team as much coaching and support as they would like to. In which case, there are solutions for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and a very good solution in my sales coach as well. A great list of coaches. With anyone who is trying to like find ways to give their team more coaching, give them team more enablement, or maybe they're stepping into like a role where they now have to take on a lot more coaching of the team, where would you suggest that they, I guess, what are the pitfalls they should avoid, and where would be like the best place for them to start, do you think?
I would say there's two common pitfalls. The first one I already touched on, which is merging or getting confused pipeline reviews or deal reviews with coaching, because they are not that. And that can reduce motivation, and it can make everything a little confusing because they are two separate entities and they should be treated so. And the other one, I think I can resonate with as somebody who's a first-time leader, is stepping into coaching and doing more telling than asking. And if you are spending more time giving answers, then the coaching is not as effective as you think it is. You should be asking more questions and supporting your team to find the answers themselves. And if they're struggling to find the answers, then it might be the questions that need work. So this is where nobody is above coaching themselves. Nobody really gets taught how to be a great coach, which is why it's helpful to find somebody who will help coach the coach, because it's difficult to step from typically a top performing salesperson who probably has the answers to supporting someone to find them themselves. And that's how they're going to learn. It's going to be much easier for them. It's going to be quicker in the long run, and that will stop you getting a Slack full of about 1 million questions in the morning. So I'd say they're the common pitfalls. And in terms of where to start, if you are a time stretch sales leader, I totally understand. So I would opt for group coaching with the team. And that can start as call reviews, whether it's discovery call reviews or cold call reviews. And you don't have to lead them every time. You can get other people to lead them, because having somebody else coach the call can be just as valuable as you doing it yourself. It's interesting to see what other people pick up on, where they stop in calls, where they ask questions. And that not only is going to help you with your time, but it also helps to develop that rep in terms of looking deeper than surface level when they're reviewing calls, and it helps them to identify things that they might not have found before.
Yeah, absolutely. And your point there between like maybe like, you know, the pipeline reviews and stuff like that versus coaching, like trying to separate them as much as possible. It's like you need to recognize when it's training or coaching or mentoring, and those are three slightly different things. And the ability to know when training for SDR A versus coaching is needed versus maybe just some mentoring. Like those are all different skills and different hats that leaders are going to have to like start to recognize as they move into those roles. And that is one of the things personally I found was actually like the most helpful when I started getting coaching. Just someone helping me like identify training, coaching, and mentoring and the differences across those.
Exactly, because they're used interchangeably, those words. But we know, being from this world, that they are completely different and actually all very important.
Yeah.
One without the other doesn't make sense. If you don't have the skills to reinforce, then what are you reinforcing? And if you teach the skills, we know that most of that is going to be left in the classroom anyway. And the frustration is that you spent hours trying to teach your team for them to just forget it and just slip back into old habits. So what's the point? So they need to be used as a blended approach together.
Yeah, absolutely. That blended approach and that awareness of like the different, it's almost like the different levers within your coaching arsenal, when to bring them into things. And tech can help with that, but the first thing I think is making sure you have the time in the calendar and the capacity so that you can deliver all of that coaching and give people a space where they know they're going to get coaching. They know they're going to have an environment where they can bring things up, rather than leaving them with 15 different tools on a plugin, scrolling through LinkedIn and being like, oh, someone said I should do it this way, I should do it that way, I should do it this way. And just getting confused, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. Nia, it's been great listening and understanding more about how you are building a really good, healthy coaching culture, how you have picked the right tech to support consistent work, consistent coaching, so your team are going to perform better and better. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you, follow your journey, learn from you, maybe get coaching from you?
Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. So there's a million different ways you can get in touch, but I would go to Nia Woodhouse, my sales coach on LinkedIn. You can drop me a DM there. Or if you're not ready to chat, I won't take it personally. You can have a little peruse on our website, which is mysalescoach.com. And we have a ton of resources on there in terms of how you can get started with coaching, common pitfalls, and what really makes great coaching sessions internally, so you can have a start there. But always love to chat, so drop me a DM if you feel like it.
Excellent. I'm sure your inbox will be flooded with more questions about coaching, and absolute pleasure having you on. Everybody, please like, subscribe, search Build with Stakki on YouTube.